Having addressed a number of specific issues so far in this letter, Paul ascends a number of peaks in his letter, including chapter 15 on the resurrection and this chapter on Christian love. So we're kind of at some of the really, really high, kind of momentous parts in the letter. He's kind of dealt with some of the very specific things, right? Hey, there's divisions, we got to stop that. But now he's talking about love and resurrection, some of these great themes in the Christian life. So many of the problems of the Corinthian church have stemmed from a simple lack of love, so Paul exalts love back to its rightful place as the greatest and most enduring of Christian virtues. Chapter 12 ends, and they probably should have put the chapter break a little bit earlier. Again, the chapter breaks, these were not original. I think these came about in like the 1200s. So, very last verse of chapter 12 is, "And yet I will show you the most excellent way." So Paul's talking about spiritual gifts, and he's saying, well, there's actually higher things than just being able to do stuff. There's something higher and greater than just having talents and skills. 13. "If I speak in the tongues of men or of angels but do not have love, I am only a resounding gong or a clanging cymbal. If I have the gift of prophecy and can fathom all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have a faith that can move mountains but do not have love, I am nothing. If I give all I possess to the poor and give over my body to hardship that I may boast but do not have love, I gain nothing. Love is patient, love is kind, it does not envy, it does not boast, it is not proud, it does not dishonor others, it is not self-seeking, it is not easily angered, it keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil but rejoices with the truth, it always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres." Thoughts, comments, questions? It's kind of hard to make a comment on something. You don't want to, something so kind of poetic, you don't want to make a comment on it because you feel like you would lessen it, but thoughts on it? Reactions? Bruce?
How we have miserably failed every point, I guess.
Yeah.
Personally speaking.
This will often be requested as a wedding text. And to be sure, I mean, it's great. You can use it as a wedding text, but in a sense, if you want to force it into law or gospel, which is it? I mean, it would be law, right? And when I see this, sure, I mean, it's romantic and it's inspirational, but I also see how often I fail to do all of these things for the flock that I care for my wife, for my daughter, for all sorts of people. You kind of need to infuse Jesus into it, you know, if you're going to speak at length about it. If you want it to be kind of a whole sermon.
Yeah, I was going to say it's a reflection of the kind of love God
Right.
has for us, and it's
Right. It kind of chases you back to Jesus because you can't read it without thinking of it. Other thoughts, comment, Bruce?
I think it's interesting how it kind of puts everything into its proper perspective, all the other gifts, where love is tantamount. So people that put the speaking in tongues at the top of the list, they're missing the boat here.
Yeah. I mean, I can't remember if this is one of the questions or not, but I'm sure you can all think of someone who was just wildly talented, just brilliant, or just had all sorts of skills, just didn't have love. You know, like, did that person mean much to you? You know, was that person someone that you were like, boy, I want to be like that guy? Or were you kind of like, boy, what a waste? You know, that it just no character, no love, no compassion. And so it reminds you of the proverb where it talks about beauty on a woman without character is like a ring in a pig's snout. It's wasted, you know, without love. Let's talk just a little bit. Let's go through some of the context. We'll kind of stretch this out. We're in no particular hurry. 13 is a rather short chapter. If I speak in the tongues of men or of angels, what's that a reference to, would you say? Speaking in the tongues of men or of angels?
well, that's Pentecost, right? I mean,
Sure, right, yeah. And even speaking in tongues, which is just spoken to, right?
then speaking in the tongue of angels, would that be? Could he even be talking about just explicating Scripture? I mean, that's God's word, but I mean, could it be? I'm just
Yeah.
here.
I hadn't thought about that. There, a couple explanations are, maybe one is just Paul is just using kind of they call it the There's not going to be a quiz on this. The grammatical term is a merism. So you say from A to Z, from soup to nuts, from men or angels, right? Paul uses this in Romans 8. Neither height nor depth, and nor anything in between, right?
Yeah.
Neither life nor death, angels nor demons, tongues of men or of angels. In other words, any kind of language you could possibly imagine. That could be one. Another one could be, people would say, well, this is kind of an ecstatic speech. Again, I kind of shy away from that.
Because Pentecost was tongues of men, they were
Right,
speaking in there.
right,
but
right.
There was no angel speak like we see them doing today in these.
Right, right.
Is there any? There's no instance in the Bible where that happens, right? I don't think there is.
Not that I know of. And when I
Yeah.
think of angels speaking, I think of them. I don't
Speaking
know.
in the language.
Right,
of men.
yeah. Speaking in the received language,
Yeah.
the target language, whatever, yeah.
So that's a little.
That's an interesting thing to pick up on. Yeah, what is the tongue of angels? Again, I'm not positive on that. If I do not have love, I'm only a resounding gong or a clanging cymbal. Right, it would be like if I were to try to play a trumpet, right? If I don't have that love that kind of guides it, then it's just a mess, right? Just playing random notes, no tempo, no kind of understanding of how the instrument works. If I have the gift of prophecy and can fathom all mysteries and knowledge, and if I have a faith that can move mountains but do not have love, I am nothing, right? The kind of the classic line, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care, right? You have people that, they know all sorts of things, but they just don't care about you, so you're kind of like, I really don't care to learn from you. If I give all I possess to the poor and give my body over to hardship that I may boast, but do not have love, I gain nothing, right? Even martyrdom, right, without love is ultimately nothing. Let's go to some of the questions there. English translations partly fail to capture the dynamic sense of the Greek. The Greek is expressed in verbs, which is to say love does, right? So, for example, beginning of verse 4, love is patient. Maybe a better translation, and it's hard, it's a fine translation, but love patience. Okay, that's not a word, but love is not expressed in bursting out in whatever emotion you feel. Love rather lengthens emotion. It tames it. Love is patient, right? So we're not just describing love, we're talking about love in the wild, how it acts, what it does. Does that make sense? How we talk about love in the American context is, it's how I feel, it's a static thing, it's an emotion. Love in a biblical context, love, it's not just how I feel, it's not something objective, it's something that my hands do, it's something that my mouth does. I speak with loving words, I do loving things.
It's a more living thing than a reactive thing.
Right, exactly. It's not a reaction to what other people do for me, right? Like if I were in couples counseling, or if I were in premarital counseling, and you talked about when you feel loved, what a couple will say, what a man or a wife will say, or a fiance and a fiance, they won't say, I feel so loved when Bill feels these deep butterflies in his stomach. No, they'll say, I feel loved when he does the dishes, when he takes the trash out, when he says nice things, when he gets me a card, right? We understand this, but there's something where, between all the Hallmark movies and kind of the rom-coms, we've thought that love is just this kind of thing that I feel rather than something that is done.
It's like imparting into something or someone or else kind of.
Yeah, it's other-centered. It's not this me-centered of how do I feel. Implications on that. What does it mean that love does? It's not just this kind of warm, fuzzy feeling inside, but it's something that acts. Bruce?
It's like it becomes part of your psyche, part of your way of life, the way you think.
Right.
It's more of an ingested thing, not just a momentary thing.
Yeah, if love is just a feeling, then maybe you can say, I've really fallen out of my love with my wife. But if love is something that I do, well, no, you can still love your wife, right?
It leads you closer to the servant life you're supposed to have.
Yeah, rather than just always trying to chase this chemistry, right?
Right.
And even sometimes, right, if you're, couples will say, well, I'm just not in love anymore. Well, sometimes it's, you just kind of got to, crank it a little bit, to kickstart it a little bit. Do the loving things, and then sometimes the feelings come. But rather than just waiting for it and saying, well, how do I feel today? Probably not the best advice. Maybe another thing that kind of follows on that, you may not, and this is, take it with a grain of salt, you may not necessarily like someone, but you can still love them. You know, you may not like crowds, you may not like people, maybe you're just more of a loner. Can you still love people though?
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely, right? So love is an action.
Yeah.
What else? Other implications of this?
Well, like Bruce said, that's like becomes part of your psyche, so then
Yeah.
that's more of the Christ-like, joyful, giving life we're supposed to have.
Great.
So, yeah, I never thought about it that way before, but
Yeah.
that leads you to that if you look at it this way, you see it this way.
Yeah, Bruce.
I think it's something that you need to exercise too, because in my own experiences, that'll wane, you know, it's like
Right.
ebbing. It's there, but you know, you gotta keep it alive.
Right. And especially in marriages too, right? If I'm just sitting on the couch and I'm saying, boy, I'm really waiting for my wife to love me right now, for her to, you know, get up and, you know, do something for me. I mean, you tell me, like, love does something, right? I'm not just going to sit there and say, well, I'm really going to wait for the spirit to move me when I feel really romantic. It may not happen, right? I may not, you know, be planning things if I don't have this idea of love. Love is something that does something.
It's good to pray for it.
Yeah. You think of John 3:16 too, right? God so loved the world, right? He looked at this, and when John talks about the world, he's not talking about, you know, Louis Armstrong, what a wonderful world. He's talking about the world as the opposition to God, right? The immoral majority, not believers, but the rest of the world, right? And it says when God looked at that, when he looked at the world, when he looked at this broken and rotting world, he loved it, right? When he saw the headlines in the papers, maybe, you know, that didn't, you know, fill God's tummy with, you know, warm fuzzies, but he loved it anyways. And how did he love it? He sent his only son, right? I think that's a really good passage too, to remember what is love. It's, you know, doing what's best for someone no matter who they are, no matter what, right? No matter what it costs. Other thoughts on this? Implications? Alan?
I think what I've noticed with a lot of like couples
Yeah.
and stuff like that, they kind of go apart.
Right.
That It's like you said, it's the special things that you do for one another. When a guy first meets a girl,
Right.
he does the extra things,
Right.
and in return, she reciprocates because
Right.
she loves that somebody cares about her
Right.
that way. And I just think when you keep that in the marriage, you try to remember
Right.
the way you felt in the beginning, because we take each other for granted,
Right.
man and woman.
Right.
It's just, and then forget about doing special things for
Yeah.
one another, and make each other feel special
Yeah.
for one another.
Yeah, absolutely. To do these things, not just think about them, not just have intentions, but to do them. And also too, right? It's not reactive kind of on that, right? Love doesn't keep score. It doesn't say, well, you know, really, technically, you know, the sink was half full, but really I did the dishes. Therefore, you have to pay me back, right? Now we're talking about manipulation. We're not talking about love, right? We're really technically, I've been keeping score all the while, and really all these things that I've been doing to you, I spent $5 on that Hallmark card. And I think it's about time that you get me back. That's not love, right? What else? Bruce.
If it was, I'd be behind.
Let's just erase the scoreboard. When we just hit the reset button, we can start today.
What helps me with people that I might not like to love them is just
Yeah.
to remember that God made everybody,
Yeah.
first of all, so
Yeah.
we're all unique.
Right.
And Jesus Christ loved everybody enough to die for everybody. So if God made everybody and Jesus loved everybody enough to die for everybody,
Yeah.
even though I might not like that person, I can still love them for their soul's sake, if nothing else.
Yeah, view them not from a worldly angle, right? Paul says, no longer do we think about people this way. But since Christ has said, this is a soul for which I'm willing to die, the least we can say is, Jesus saw something in him, so I'm gonna love him too, you know?
It's hard.
Helps me.
Yeah, boy, is that hard, right? So you have to keep on running back to Jesus. That'll be part of the sermon. Come to me, again and again, to run to Jesus and say, well, did Jesus, elect me from all time and eternity because he said, boy, he's really got some potential. We really want him on our team. We're not going to pick the other guys though, because that's let grace be grace, right?
I think that's another place where man just falls down.
Right.
And God knew we'd fall down.
Yeah.
Jesus came and showed us how to do it. We can try.
Right. Show us how to do it and even do it for us, right?
Right.
Yeah, for when I fail. Absolutely. Good. Number 2, Paul states that without love, so many gifts do no good, gain nothing, and make us nothing. It almost seems like an exaggeration, but how can such great gifts be nullified by a lack of love? We kind of talked about that earlier, right? Maybe you've known someone. Anyone care to elaborate just a little bit more? How can that happen where someone can have all of just these wonderful gifts, but...
I can think of some writers that I've known, or people that are very talented in the arts and they do wonderful work, but when you realize what's behind that work, you
Right.
see it completely in a totally different way. It
Right.
negates every positive feeling you had towards not only their work but them. And
Sure.
and when there's no love behind that, whether they're calling it love or not,
Right.
once you recognize that, it changes your entire outlook. So someone that
Yeah.
you once admired, you then shun away. You
Yeah.
shy away from, or
Yeah, you learn about kind of the motifs, or this is what I was really talking about in the book. And
yeah,
that's not love. That's manipulation. That's exploitation. That's any number of things that people write
manipulation is a good word.
about. Yeah.
Yeah,
Alternatively, there are some books that I just struggle to get through, but I want to keep reading them because the guy is just he has insight, and he talks about love and forgiveness and all that. And this is just a testament to how kind of uncouth and whatever. But I'm trying to get through Dostoevsky, who he's a Russian guy, and he's writes about human condition and forgiveness and has some Christian, maybe not perfect Christian themes, but I want to read about it, because he has that. Alternatively, someone may be at the top of the Amazon 100 list, but if it's just filth, I just don't care to read it.
yeah. It's that way with a lot of things too. It
Yeah.
can be athletics or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah, you listen to an interview of an athlete and you're like, maybe I don't like that team so much.
Or public speaking,
Yeah.
I'll use an example of a politician, but
Right.
somebody you really liked, and then they turn out to be another corrupt.
Yeah.
There's no love there behind those words when they're saying, "I love, this country," or "I love this people," or
A lot of it
again,
is self-serving rather than
Exactly.
love.
love because of how it makes me feel, not because of what I'm doing. Yeah.
yeah.
What else, Jim?
Well, it's not love when you do something to get something.
Yeah.
For instance, you go to church and you give money to the church, not because you love God, but because you think that that's going
Right.
to win you approval with God.
Right. Yeah, it's not charity.
No.
If I'm investing with a 5% rate of return or something like that, right? That's not. Well, maybe in today's economy it is, but. Alan.
I think it's hard for somebody to give love who doesn't know how to receive love. Who
Sure.
Doesn't have a love for God.
Sure.
So it's hard for him to receive love because he doesn't have a love for, and he's always looking for the next, or she is always looking for the next shiny thing to
Right.
fulfill her,
Right.
or him.
Yeah.
And there's never enough. Because there are some people in this world that have so much,
Right.
that give no thanks for what they have because of who they are.
Yeah.
But they're without love. And,
Yeah.
It's kind of like raising my kids. I came to the conclusion there was 3 things they needed, and the big one was love.
Right.
But without love,
Right.
without guidance, without discipline,
Yeah.
and you take any one of the 3 things,
Yeah.
and they're going to be lacking in what they need. But I think a lot of people are just about without love, and that's the reason that we have so many people in society that are godless.
It's stunning to me how much a lack of love can damage someone in their life, you know, just without. It also is remarkable when people are able to bounce back from that, but it is stunning just how much, you know, if children are not given love, or if they're, you know, it just has a startling impact throughout their life. Yeah, that has spiritual consequences too, absolutely. Bruce?
You know, when you think of love, you think of it as a gift of the Spirit, right?
Yeah.
So it's the Spirit of Christ. But if you don't believe in Jesus Christ, you don't have the Spirit of Christ. So are you even really able to love? You know, I question that sometimes, that people that aren't Christian really even love. I mean, they
Right.
might do good things, but then again, it might be for selfish reasons, you know?
Yeah, there's always that question of, is it really altruistic? I mean, if I'm giving $1 million to whatever, but it kind of makes me feel like God, is that really altruism, right? Or if I'm doing it so I can get my name on a plaque, is that really altruism? I was reading about the Sacklers, that's the family behind OxyContin and the big opioid crisis. They donated all this money, but it was always with the stipulation, we want our names on this and you cannot remove them. Okay, is that really charity now? You know, if you're doing it to foster your own kind of reputation. What else? Moving on. Comment on the following passage from a commentary on 1 Corinthians. Paul's concept of love is not to be equated with the modern sentimental notion of love, which often becomes an excuse for various aberrations. The love romanticized and glorified by modern culture is self-seeking. It is rooted in the self and its needs and emotions. So let's just get it out into the open. There's the slogan, love is love, right? Is that what Paul is talking about? Is Paul just talking about kind of a carnal love? We would say no, right? But go on, take it, run with it.
So I've heard this saying, how can it be wrong if they love each other? With
Right.
reference to homosexual relationships. Really?
Right. And it's not that I'm denying that there may be similar romantic feelings, but if we're talking about ultimate love, doing what's best for somebody, not just fulfilling my own carnal needs or desires, then we're talking about something else. True love, that would confront somebody with sin, would enable,
All you need is love.
Yeah.
Both of those-
Taking me down the Beatles rabbit hole, yeah.
Both of those statements, love is love, all you need is love, take God out of the picture.
Right.
They just make it an emotional state
Right,
rather than a higher
Right.
selfless
Right.
state. It seems to be kind of like a counterfeit of the rainbow at
Yeah.
the same time.
Yeah.
These
yeah.
things seem to always kind of counterfeit a God-centered message, but take God out of it.
Yeah, they've kind of cut the roots, what actually empowers, what actually finally gives.
The true force behind it.
Yeah. They've cut all that out. They've scooped it out.
Yeah,
And then they've just taken the sentimental part of it.
yeah. And it acts on human emotions. It's designed to do that, so people
Right.
go with it very easily.
Right. It's
Yeah.
just kind of floating from one kind of dopamine or serotonin or whatever hit to another.
It sounds nice, it feels
Right.
good, let's do it. You know,
Yeah,
that's what it seems to
sloganeering.
be the human way. You know?
Sloganeering.
Yeah.
Question 4. In groups, take a number of the descriptions of love and give them concrete application. For example, what does it mean in practical terms to not delight in evil? So let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, great. I think we could take 3 each. I think there's 15. So Mike and Jody, let's do love is patient, love is kind, it does not envy. Talk about those for 3-4 minutes maybe. Come up with a concrete, practical application. What does it mean that it's kind, it does not envy? And then let's do Jim and Diane. If you can take it does not boast, it is not proud, it does not dishonor others. Talk about what does that look like in practical everyday life, concrete applications. Bruce and Patty, let's see. It is not self-seeking, it is not easily angered, it keeps no record of wrongs. Bob and Debbie, love does not delight in evil but rejoices with truth, always protects, always trusts. And then Michelle and Alan, always hopes, always perseveres, and then you're going to have to jump to the next paragraph, love never fails. So take maybe 3 minutes and then dig into those. Each group, you have 3 of those descriptors of love. Talk about what that looks like in practical, everyday terms. In other words, when I walk out of those doors, I will know how to love somebody.
Okay, so it does not boast and it is not proud. So,
Well, I mean,
someone's been
you don't.
knows about how good they are, what they've accomplished. And they're proud of that, that's not wrong. And it doesn't dishonor others. What do you think about that?
Even when they're healthy, that's
I'm not sure.
Oh, yeah, I
It
know.
does not dishonor
Yeah,
others.
patient it is, but
Love does not
it is
make fun of others, humiliate others. Love doesn't dishonor.
You don't demonize
Try to make them less than human. And it's not proud, it doesn't boast, it's not, love is not something that is proud of itself.
I think
It's always
that's.
concerned about
You're not.
And you also
itself, how well it does. That's not what love is.
Yeah, exactly, it's built in
Love is the
It's
opposite
without
of those things. You actually, you can't really love until you realize
Speaking to you.
how much God has loved you, all the stuff you've been forgiven for, how terrible you are now. And then that's your step towards love, when you realize that you have a loving God that loves you, even though you've done all these things wrong. But you actually, it's in your nature. to do
Yeah,
this.
that's a good, yeah, that's,
Wishing.
and it doesn't look as
Oh,
can be that.
yeah, what he says.
You know, actually, you're probably right.
I'm listening to some of this, I'm seriously, I'm listening to some of this stuff. What was going on in the middle of
Yeah.
Louise Fletcher.
All right. Maybe 10 more seconds, wrap up whatever you're talking about, 10, 15 more seconds.
But I think that you can't really love until you realize how prideful and how
All right.
boastful we are.
Let's talk about some of these. We'll let Mike and Jody go first. Love is patient, love is kind, it does not envy. Concrete applications for some of those.
Gosh.
Go for it.
Okay, as far as patience, love is patient. In spite of you, loving someone in spite of faults, or, and Jody also brought up perhaps even something that they can't help, like an illness.
Sure.
And you know, you hear so many times, oh, I ended the marriage because she spent too much money on a credit card, or he's sick in bed all the time. You
Right.
know, patient love would see through or work through, or at least stand by
Right.
a person through, it's like in the marriage vows, sickness and in health.
Right.
You know, through thick and thin, or what have you. Love is patient. You don't also, while the person is going through something, you're not putting pressure on them. Maybe
Right.
you're kind of just showing support through your love.
Yeah.
for somebody.
Your love is not so conditioned by deadlines.
It's not browbeating somebody,
Right.
or it's
Yeah,
not,
yeah, yeah.
that kind of thing. And it loves somebody for who they are in spite of themselves.
Yeah, was it Shakespeare that kind of had, yeah, someone else will be able to say it better, but his whole idea was, is it really love if you love not who someone is, but kind of your idea of what they could be if only you could change them and criticize them and kind of shape them?
That seems to be so much what's going on in the world.
Right, right. And is that really love? Or is it loving someone where they are right now and what they're like right now?
Yeah.
Some marriage advice that I got was, men marry, their wives, and they think that they're going to be the same for the rest of their lives. That motherhood is not going to, divert any of their affections at all, and that they will always be the same. And then women think that they will change the men once they're married, right? Once we're married, and again, so it's, and then Keller talks about, Tim Keller, he wrote a book on it. He's saying, if you're prepared for marriage, you should be able to ideally love a stranger, because your spouse is going to change. Your spouse may not be the person that you married. Your spouse, may be more stressed out. May not. Can you just love a stranger? Are you able to do that? Because if you're not, you may come to a day in your marriage where you just say, I don't know if I love this person, because they're not that idea that I had in my head on my wedding day.
That makes me think of like military marriages. I remember a friend of mine saying that, her husband was gone so long, and
Right.
when he came back, she didn't know him. And so
Oh,
they
yeah.
had to get reacquainted all over again, but they had
Yeah.
that love of, to be patient and
Yeah, yeah.
all of that and go through that. But so many marriages break up because of that.
Yeah, yeah. Let's stop at each word. We'll interrupt you. Anything else to patient? Love is patient. All right, we'll go ahead. Next one. Love is kind. What does that mean?
Well, I kind of look at it a lot as you're doing things for the other person or somebody else without being asked to, without
Sure.
being forced to. It's just,
Sure,
you're
sure.
initiating it because, you want to. It's out of love. It's out of,
Sure, sure,
It's building up of the other person also,
sure, sure.
without any need for reciprocation.
Yeah, you don't need someone to jumpstart for you.
Yeah.
What else? Anything else on kind? Maybe we overlook kindness sometimes. I've dealt with people that they would say, no, really what I'm doing is I'm being very loving on this. But it was just kind of vacant of any kind of warmth or gentleness or niceness. Is it okay to just be pleasant sometimes? Is it okay to just be kind? Yeah, absolutely, right? Now, love isn't distilled into only being pleasant and quote-unquote nice, right? Where we never say any hard truths to one another, but it can also be kind. Anything else on kind?
and it gives hard truths with kindness.
With kindness, right? I'm not saying these things in the most abrasive way I possibly can imagine, right?
Yeah.
To ruffle feathers, and then if you talk back against me, well, I just dunked on you, so I'm right, you're wrong. How about the next one? Does not envy.
We kind of thought of the stereotype of the man that's upset because his wife earns more money than he does, or something like that.
Right?
He's not. It's not a competition.
Right.
It's not, and it's also not. If you turn it outside of a marriage towards your brother or something, you're not envious of what he has,
Right.
or you're not. It kind of goes back to the Ten Commandments: don't covet this, don't
Yeah.
And then in secular world, the grass is always greener. They say.
Yeah, yeah,
You don't.
yeah.
You can be happy for somebody.
Right.
You can love somebody, be happy for them in their success, even if you don't have that, or
Yeah,
whether
yeah.
it be a good job, a beautiful wife, a big car, a big house, whatever.
Yeah, yeah. You see that everywhere, right? You see that where, if the Lord has blessed someone, how often, don't you hear someone kind of, well, what did they do? What kind of, shortcuts did they take? Look, maybe they just worked hard.
Yeah.
All right, there are thieves, right? I remember in Russia, a lot of the people they would call void or thief, if they had a lot of money. Well, because it was a little bit sketch over there. You talk about when all the public assets went private again. Yeah, that was a little bit sketch. Envy is kind of weird. It's the one thing where I can hate someone and they did nothing to me, right?
Yep.
Someone can be envious of you. You did nothing wrong. But they just don't like you because you have something that they don't. Anything else on envy? How insidious that is, right? And yeah, again, we see it everywhere. You see it, Cain and Abel, right, where it starts out, and it leads to just these murderous consequences. And if someone else has something better than I have, the only explanation is they did something wrong. I should have it.
I think in society, our press, our government,
Yeah.
envy to divide us.
Yeah, absolutely.
100%. Because it's always what somebody else has and you don't have.
Right. And there's no gratitude, right? There's no, I don't know. And look, the Lord's blessed me. I'm not going to cry in my beer, but I've also been to places where the poverty was abject. People are living under tin roofs that are attached with zip ties or whatever. If we don't have gratitude, if it's always envy, if no amount of it will kind of finally quench the malice that I feel against other people because they have more, boy, there's something wrong with me.
I guess envy is close to jealousy, but I think the whole process of marketing cars and all the technology that we have,
Yeah.
the computers that we have, the phones that we have, that's all being processed by envy.
Yeah.
Because everybody wants that better than the next guy. Remember when the
Yeah.
first home computers came out? Everybody was bragging about their hard drives and how big they were and how fast they were. And then pretty soon it created an evolution of home computers. Boom, boom, boom. They got faster and more capacity. And then people were constantly bragging about what they had. And
Right.
I think it's in the Bible. I think in Ecclesiastes, I think it makes a quote about all things are driven from man's envy. And I'm like, man, that is really the truth. We wouldn't be where we are technologically, I am sure, if it would be for envy. So there's some good things that have come from it, but there's a lot of bad things behind it.
A powerful market driver, right? How many of you have driven on Jones Street down in Savannah? I mean, you probably have, and maybe you just don't know it, but if you want to, you can go down. The whole expression, keeping up with the Joneses, that comes from Jones Street in Savannah. So you can drive by, you can see the door, and especially during Christmas, with the Christmas lights, they always go, whole 9 yards. So if you want to keep up with the Joneses, you can, it's literally just 30 minutes down the road if you want to see what it takes to keep up with the Joneses.
Cars, all of that. They're constantly changing the models of cars, they're tweaking them a little bit every year so that your car doesn't have what my car has now.
Right.
My car's got an in-step bumper, your truck's just got a regular bumper. Oh man, I gotta have one of those,
Your car's got the in-step bumper?
Jim leaves in a fury. I can't believe it. Fury and the screwdriver he takes it. Yeah, but it's wild though, just the amount of stuff that we can have and still be angry about it, Let's go on. It does not boast. So Jim and Diane, do you want to take that? What does it mean that love doesn't boast?
Well, I want to take all three of them. Love doesn't boast. Love's not proud. It doesn't dishonor others.
Yeah.
And realize that we're going to have those problems because we're born with them.
Sure.
We're born with those problems.
Yeah.
And the first thing we have to realize is that we are that way.
Right.
And that we can't change that way unless we see how much Christ has done for us and how much He's forgiven us.
Sure.
And until we do get to that point, we can't stop but being proud, boastful. We can't even attempt to cure that.
Yeah.
Because it's in our nature.
Again, you see that everywhere, right? You see it on the internet. A picture of whatever I have, right? Bragging about it, or this is what I did. The humble brag. Are you familiar with that term, right?
No.
Boy, I am so tired after hugging and taking care of all of these orphans. Or something like that, where it's like, okay, I'm not blind. I see what you're doing, right? It is just so hard to be so compassionate to people. Where, I mean, you know, like,
It's like virtue signaling.
yeah, it is exactly virtue signaling, where that, I mean, that's the tactic people take of, all right, well, you know, it's kind of gauche, kind of kitsch to just openly brag, so maybe I'll just find these little ways to kind of slide in some self-promotion. You see that everywhere, right?
Well, like
even
this
worse.
one, I lost $1,000 in Vegas, you know.
Yeah.
In
Oh,
other
yeah,
words,
yeah.
I got all this money to throw around. I lost $1,000 in Vegas, but they're really
Yeah,
saying,
yeah.
I can afford to lose
Yeah.
$1,000.
How about you just tell me how rich you are? Yeah.
I gotta learn to do that better, I don't do that.
It's an art, Jim.
Never works for me.
Yeah, I'll teach you. Come to my office. Yeah. Anything else? I'll let you go to bat at it first. If you had anything else on dishonor, proud,
No, not really.
boast, open it up to anybody else. Sometimes, I wonder if you could maybe discern the little. There's maybe similarities in the little triplets. There's little three things like patient, kind, does not envy. Maybe those are connected, and then boast, proud, dishonor. Maybe those are connected in a sense, right? Maybe, I don't know. Interesting to think about. What does it mean to not dishonor somebody? When might I dishonor somebody?
Slander
Be
them.
true to them.
Slander, and then
Not to be true.
yeah.
Gossip.
Betrayal.
Gossip, betrayal.
Belittle them.
Yeah, belittle them, right? Making comments, just kind of disparaging them, tearing them down.
Or honor yourself above them.
Yeah. Always be looking to see where I can kind of get a step above them. Love instead, it wants to kind of burnish the image of others, right? Isn't this person just a great person? Rather than, or maybe just, slipping in, wow, there's a huge, hole in the drywall because, Mike missed with the handcart and slammed the cabinet into it, right? I'm not constantly bringing up things to embarrass other people, right? Anything else? Let's go to the next one. Self-seeking, easily angered, no record of wrongs. Bruce and Patty.
Oh, I guess I'll start off with the first part. Not self-seeking, that's exactly the opposite of love, because love should be a giving. Love is a giving, not a taking.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to learn that lesson my own, in life, and I still have to learn it, but, if you love somebody, you're not taking, you're giving. So
Yeah.
self-seeking is taking,
Yeah.
that's all.
Anything else on self-seeking? Anybody else? This is, again, I can't emphasize it enough. This is society's definition of love. Love this is how things make me feel. In what sense can I say that I love pizza? Is it because I would do anything for pizza? Is it because pizza is something that I constantly work for and honor? Obviously not, right? It's because of how pizza makes me feel on the inside, right? Jim?
It's like self-seeking. This is where we go to the world and we say, world, look at how righteous I am.
Yeah.
And the Christian goes, no, world, look at how terrible I am, but how good God is.
Yeah.
We're the opposite of that.
Right. Yeah, it can even be easy for preachers to forget. The goal of preaching is not for people to say, how good is the preacher, but how good is God, right?
Yeah, how good it points to Jesus.
Easily angered, Bruce and Patty, did you want to take a crack at that?
Yeah. Patty doesn't want to, so I guess I'm stuck.
Does not dishonor others, does not dishonor others.
I think it's kind of like patience, really. It's just not letting not letting things bother you right away so quickly. Just overlooking other people's faults to a degree. Just understanding maybe certain weaknesses people have, and not just letting it anger you. You have to be more patient, and anger brings about all the negative things that God doesn't want us to have. So love can't be anger. So you wouldn't want to be easily angered either, I wouldn't think.
That could be tough, especially for guys, right, to not be angered. Because I think you learn this over time. If you're angry, you have at least kind of a petty kind of a power in a relationship, if only for a moment, right? If you're the really angry person, what are people going to be trying to do? Trying to make you happy. I want to make you not mad anymore. So, you know, if you have a kind of a petty tyrant boss, they might use anger a lot of times to just say, well, let me throw my weight around. Let me get angry. Now you're going to have to do what I say. And then even just over very small stuff, you know, things that are kind of inconsequential, right? Even when you have the jump on someone, right? Even if you have the right to get angry at someone, as a Christian, do we always use that right and say, all right, well, boy, now I got you dead to rights. Let me really lay into you. That's not what we do.
The idea that you're easily angered kind of implies that you're sitting there waiting for somebody to do something stupid or wrong or to
Right.
set you off.
Yeah,
It's
yeah, you have a
almost-
hair trigger.
Yeah, and it kind of implies then selfishness.
Yeah. I'm thinking about my own kind of equilibrium, my own emotions, and not yours.
Yeah. You're
When
just
I get
ready
cut
to-
off in traffic,
Yeah.
That's
it makes
different,
me-
that's different.
Yeah. Jim, I don't see anything about traffic in
Yeah,
here. I'm just teasing.
It
You're
makes
right.
me angry right away. But what do I do after I'm angry?
Right.
Instead of cursing that person, I start praying for them.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
praying that they don't have an accident. And praying that they would come to know Jesus as their Lord and Savior. Boy, is that going to be hard.
Yeah. You must do a lot of praying, Jim. If you live in Bluffton, you've got to be like a prayer warrior of the highest caliber.
Yeah, I do. I had to sell my Miata because
All sorts, yeah, like a little prayer desk and all this, just like the most devout. Keeps no record of wrongs.
Oh, that was fine. If you kept a record of wrongs, there was never any love in the first place. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like when you get married and you step up to the altar, after you get married, it's not like the minister hands each one of you a scorecard and say, okay,
Right.
you know, here
Right,
you go.
right.
Check a mark every day, you're gonna
Yeah.
see. I mean, or when you talk to people and you say, well, why did you marry that person? Well, I loved all these things. He remembered my birthday, he gave me flowers, and he opened car doors, but now that's all changed. You know, you
Right.
don't, maybe the love manifested in other things, and you're
Right.
just too blind to see it. But if you're keeping a scorecard of everything that person's doing wrong, you're really not focusing on the things they're doing right.
Yeah. Maybe the reason, you know, so-and-so could go to Hallmark and, you know, write these lengthy and flowery love notes is because they weren't doing laundry or the dishes or the lawn or fixing the sink or something like that. I like what you said. Sometimes it manifests in different ways where, okay, you know, maybe love doesn't always look the same in every stage of a relationship too, right? It's okay if it's not a kind of this agog kind of heart on fire, ardent kind of burning passion. Maybe it turns into more of a tenderness at some point in the relationship. That doesn't mean it's not strong or authentic, but keep no record of wrongs. Can you imagine a relationship where someone, every time there was any kind of trouble, it was just, well, you did this.
It's your fault.
I
did that with my parents.
I have known relationships like that, and I can't think of anything more toxic where you are constantly beaten down. All of these, I mean, and we talked about it earlier, you can't help but think of Christ in all of these things, right? When we come to pray and to confess and to speak to God in prayer, does he say, do you remember back in '86 when? He doesn't do that, right?
because he doesn't even remember.
Right, yeah. I will remember their wickedness no more.
Right.
It says, come to me, all you who are weary and burdened. He never gets tired of doing that. Man, could you imagine that?
Can't move forward if you're hanging on to the past.
Yeah. You put all these arrows in someone and you never take them out.
Even Peter, remember when Peter says, Lord, how many times should I forgive them?
Yeah.
And Jesus says, infinitely, just like you've been forgiven.
Yeah. And the truth is, there are things that we do in relationships that you can't undo, right? There are things that you can't unsay. There's forgiveness, right? But if I'm going to say, well, you have to make it right because you did X, Y, or Z, well, I don't know, like, if someone was kind of a jerk to you for 5 years, can you just rewind and undo that for 5 years? Like, so there has to be forgiveness. If it's all, I'm gonna hold on to these wrongs until you make it right, you may be holding on to that forever.
And you're putting yourself in jail, not them.
Yeah. Anything else on
Jail
record?
and
Ron?
unforgiveness.
But
Al?
I watched it with my parents.
Yeah.
Like, we start off with this little tiny argument, and next thing you know, they're talking about something that happened a month ago, made it bigger, and now
Right.
they're talking about something that was 6 months ago,
Right.
and now it's even bigger.
Right.
Before you know it, we just got this rage going on in the house. It's the craziest thing you ever see.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Early on, with Michelle and I was
Right.
like, if there's something that's bothering us today, we
Right.
talk about it, and we never talk about it again. We
Yeah.
don't allow things to just continue to escalate,
Right.
because in the end, my parents went their own ways.
Right.
But because there wasn't that love for each other. It
Yeah.
was just, it was a scorecard always.
Mhm.
And it was a never-ending scorecard.
Right.
And it just ends to complete disaster.
Yeah, if there's no forgiveness, I mean, eventually, I don't know how it could end it any other way, you know, because the person you are gonna probably sin the most against in your life is your spouse, right?
Besides God.
Yeah, besides God, right? So it's, at a certain point, like, there's billions of other people who haven't sinned against you in those ways, right? If there's no forgiveness, I mean, you gotta be looking out at other people, well, this person did do this to me. If that's the only thought I have of this person has transgressed me in this way, I don't know how that relationship doesn't suffer from that. Let's see, where are we? Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with, let's see, did I still, who does not delight in evil? Debbie. Bob or Debbie, do you want to go ahead and talk to that?
I think today, you can really, all you have to do is look at society and see
Yeah.
how people delight in evil.
Yeah, yeah.
It is out there, it's in your face.
Yep.
And you have to not buy into that. You have
Yeah.
to not get caught up in it. And I think I see myself telling my grandchildren that all the time. This is not.
Yeah.
This,
No,
you
no,
can't. You cannot get caught up in
Right.
this just because it's what everybody's. But it's okay. It's what everybody's doing. And
Part of love is discretion. Love is not unthinking. Love is not disconnected to making good decisions, right? Love has some knowledge connected to it, right? It's not loving for me to say, whatever, I just go 80 miles per hour through a neighborhood. Like, there's got to be some kind of understanding connected to it. Anything else does not delight in evil.
Well, I would think that the reason I would delight in evil is I could say, well, look, I'm not as bad as that. I wouldn't do that. That's kind of delighting
Yeah.
in evil, isn't it?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
Or when I think there's a kind of a twisted satisfaction we can get in the sins of others, right?
he really got what was coming to him.
Watching it.
Oh, yeah. Well, I told him.
Yeah.
Well, I told him. And then someone, I don't know, they're not using proper safety equipment, and they get like a huge splinter in their hand, or they get a finger chopped off in the table. Well, there's kind of a delight there, rather than saying, boy, I wish that really wouldn't happen. Or, did you hear what's happening to so-and-so? Where there's this kind of salacious, this kind of enjoyment we get out of, rather than just saying, I'm going to honor this person by just leaving their sins, leaving the name out. I don't need to know.
It's almost like slowing down to look at a spiritual car wreck.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You just like,
If nothing else, it gives you something to
Yeah.
be excited about, something, ooh.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Let's keep moving on. We got a couple of minutes left. Rejoices with the truth. Anything to that one, rejoices with the truth. That maybe kind of partners with the last one. Love loves what's right. It recognizes that there is such a thing as truth, right? How about protects? Did you still have protects too? It always protects. What do you suppose that means?
I don't think we even got that far.
Oh, okay, that's all right.
I have-
Alan? Oh,
Love just, you just, the things that you love, you protect. I mean,
Yeah.
God loves us, He protects us. We love each other.
Right.
We protect one another.
Right.
We're there for each other, through the hard, the easy, no matter what, we're always there for one another.
Love recognizes that there is evil and harm in the world, right? Debbie, like you were talking about, I want to protect my children from this. Always trusts. Maybe the easiest way for this one is it's not cynical, right? I can be very cynical with people. I could say, yeah, well, do you really mean that, Jim? And I could say, I don't know, like, you said this, Mike, but do you really, love is willing to try. It's not, doesn't mean it's gullible, right? But it is willing to trust.
Without trust, how can there be love?
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
They kind of go hand in hand. If you can't trust someone or something,
Mhm.
how can you love them?
Part of this kind of goes to, I love what you said. Part of it kind of goes to almost like the scenario of someone has sinned against me 3 or 4 times. It would be very easy for me to protect myself and say, I won't trust them when they say they forgive me. Love sometimes puts itself in vulnerable spots. Again, this is not pastoral counseling, right? There is a time for talking about all these things, but there's also a time to say, love will forgive again. Love will do all these things again. Always hopes. Thoughts on that?
That kind of goes with the first one, patience, I think, because
Yeah.
like I said earlier, if you're loving somebody that's going through, say, like an addiction problem or a
Right.
disease, there's hope there for a
Right.
more whole,
Right.
complete love, I guess.
Very easy to be just pessimistic and say, well, it's just never gonna
Yeah.
happen. Forget it,
Yeah.
I
Same.
would always pray.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Last one's always perseveres, right? It doesn't give up easy. It would be easy for me to say, well, all right, let me just try this love thing with my wife. And, I pick her up a $2 bouquet of flowers from Kroger, and I go, well, none of this is working, right? She didn't do the dishes tonight. Well, this is all. It perseveres, right?
That reminds me, my wife, she said, for Mother's Day, she said, Jim, I want you to take me out to a place that prepares food in front of you. So I took her to Subway, and that's when the argument started. That's when the argument started.
And my marriage has been different ever since.
You didn't do that, really, did you?
Yeah, we won't say whether it's been better or worse, but it's been different ever since.
One of the things that my wife did
Sure.
early in our marriage, because we kind of helped each other,
Yeah.
but one of the things she said is, we are never to go to bed angry with one another.
Mm.
We are never to sleep on the couch.
Right.
We go to bed as a loving couple.
Sure.
And that was really a valuable thing
Yeah.
for me to learn from her. But that was her love
Yeah. Yeah.
that she was conveying.
It can feel, yeah, and that's a beautiful thing because you can feel kind of powerful if you have the upper hand, can't you? Like, wow, I'm gonna make you go through this and this and this, and then maybe I'll forgive you. Love doesn't do that, right?
Yeah.
Love never fails. That's maybe where we'll pick up next time. But how is it that love never fails? We'll talk about that next time. Let's go with a prayer. Lord God, Heavenly Father, we pray that you would give us the kind of love that you have shown this broken world, that you have shown us through your Son, that we might reflect the love that you have given to us into the lives of others. We pray this in Jesus' name.
That would have been really bad because she doesn't even like Subway.
Funny, because see, that's important in my life.
I give you 300 on my little
Good, how are you?
Great.
Good, how are you?
I did enjoy your summer.
That was pretty funny.
Yes. How are you guys?
We're well. This is Mom and stepdad were just here for
Hey, Daniel.
they just left this morning. So said goodbye to them.
How you doing?
Or then my kids
Doing anything?
today with my aunt. How much?
More kids.
Regular Airbnb around here.
It has.
He's working.
That's what you get for living on one
And then we're going to
So he, so you're always, did graduate from high school or?
He graduated last year.
Has
Oh, last year.
He's working for an elevator company.
There's like two major elevator manufacturers.
changed her for like where she's at.
Otis and Tyson Crouch. He does residential. Those are the commercial ones. He's doing residential.
You all still wanted to be